Welcome to Rhythm of Previews, where we check out the preview chapters of Rhythm of War, the fourth Stormlight Archive novel. I'm Danielle with 17th Shard, and I am no longer a potato.
Well,
I have a new camera.
You weren't a potato in the first place. It was just really bad frame rate.
Yeah. No longer a failed potato. And I'm Arvin. Hi, I'm Paleo.
Hi. This Tuesday, Tor released Chapter 6, only one this week. As per a Reddit comment from Peter, we're going to be getting 19 chapters plus that prologue in total. So that means we'll have 13 weeks of previews left until release, one chapter per week.
Watch this episode be 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah. 4 chapters, 20 minutes. It's like hour, 20 minutes. Then our last episode,
Right.
105. Yeah. Oh, I'm the producer, Ghost Eric. Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up? If you missed our previous episodes, you can find it all in our playlist below. You can find the other chapters, discussions on the forums, in our preview chapter index, which is also in the description.
And if you've been following the prologue chapters and didn't know yet, Brandon is also making comments and leaving sort of little annotations on Reddit for these chapters. But last week, we always record on Tuesdays, so we didn't get his comments last week. We are going to catch up with them now. And basically, last week's annotation talked about how Brandon, over the course of writing this book, or even writing the previous novels, he noticed that he'd do an injustice to mental disorders, such as a dissociative identity disorder, by portraying them in this sort of fantastical way. And so he decided to give it more of a realistic spin in Rhythm of War. I guess we could already see some of that in these chapters. Like, of course, it was a year between and Shallan changed, but we can also see just his portrayal has changed a little. Yeah, Brandon has also said that he has a beta reader who consulted him on this, so we can hope for a more hopefully accurate depiction of these mental disorders, and it's just cool to know that Brandon really cares about it and wants to do a good job.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and actually Brandon, after somebody else or somebody in the thread asked about how he approached this, and he didn't just change writing her, he actually realized that, like, I'm going to quote him here, I realized that her downward spiral was going to require me to actively deal with her mental illness in a responsible way, if that makes sense. I wouldn't change much about the past books. It was more that I realized that the place she was going in this one required a much more delicate touch than I could manage without some expert help. And so that goes to show that, Shallan's issues are not only magical, but she actually has some mental disorder that is real in some way. So it's not just caused by her lie weaver. Yeah.
It's just enhanced by the magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's exacerbated by the magic. Exactly. As always, there are going to be Rhythm of War spoilers ahead. And let's get started with this chapter. Danielle, why don't you summarize what we have here?
Okay. So chapter 6 is called A Loose Thread. The epigraph basically says a proper fabrial is encased in a wire cage made of specific types of metals to control the device. And then we get into Shallan's point of view, Shallan, Radiant, and Veil's point of view. It's very hard to kind of follow them because they just they go from one to the other so quickly within the space of a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So Radiant begins telling the sons to bring her with them because Adolin, again from the last one, was he was coming back to save her because he thought that he saw the signal, and they drag Radiant along with the sack over her head through some winding passageways, and then Shallan kind of takes over and she's able to make sense of the direction and realizes really they're just kind of bringing her around some loops. They arrive in a cellar of sorts where she hears them disrobing to their normal clothes, and then Veil thinks about how Sadeas was really crafty and Ialai is even more so. They hear some cultists on the other side of the door arguing about how it's all coming apart, and then the door opens and then they enter the room to see Ialai, and finally, because this is their final goal, is to finally see her in person. Radiant wants to get her to say something incriminating, but Vale has a different opinion. She wants to kill her because basically she jeopardizes everything Shallan loved. And they mention the name of the chapter in this. They say that Vale wants to snip the loose thread, which is Eli. What do you think about this chapter, or this part of the chapter?
So that's it. We didn't get too much new lore or anything, but I still think it served a good purpose of characterizing Shallan even more and showing how, like, we see again here how Vale and Radiant actually care about Shallan and her sort of, I guess, love life, or her life with Adolin.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just think that it was fun. Something that was interesting to note, I think, was that Shallan actually, Vale says that Shallan has memories of something, and Vale sort of searches them. So it's even extends to the point that they apparently have distinct memories of events or things, but they're still accessible to each other. So they just make a distinction, probably who was in charge at that point. Yeah, that I found really cool.
I found that epigraph to be super, super exciting. Like lots and lots of exclamation points.
Yeah.
I am so interested to see what the different metals of the wires that create that cage around the gemstone, the Fabrial. What do they do? It's so exciting.
Yeah, like I find it also interesting that Navani says that the metals also are a closely kept secret of the artifabrials. Like I thought that was more of a common knowledge, but apparently it's not. Like we see that, like I guess people would have noticed at this point that Fabrials always use metal, but I guess it's still a secret what exactly they purpose they serve.
They're often used like jewelry, you know, if you think about yasnas and stuff, they might just think of it as like a aesthetic element, like a gold wire versus a steel wire or something like that.
Yeah,
very exciting.
And I hope, I guess we're actually going to learn what metals are actually used, because we have never actually gotten a description before. It's a goldish metal, it's a silvery metal, and actually to get to know what metals they are will be extra exciting.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm really sad that there's only one chapter, because I was so excited to see what the next epigraph said. So we'll see next week.
I mean, I hope we get to see, like Brandon has mentioned in previous WOPs, that we'll get to learn about metals in this book, and he actually also has sort of hinted at connections to the elementic metals. So I'm really looking forward to see that. Maybe, I don't know, we don't know if it's all actually, like, we have the alerter fabrials that Risen uses in her interlude, for instance. And I think it would be super cool if that used bronze for its effect, sort of, because that would be that sort of thematic connection.
And then Leshui's spear Fabrial has a metal attached to it. We don't know what it is, but it's silvery metal. So that's, I'm going to be really keeping my eyes open during my reread and trying to see, like, what kind of metal is it described as? Because if it's just like a little throwaway, like, oh, a bronzy color or something, that would be really, I'm kind of going to zero in on that when I start rereading those books. Yeah. What else? Oh, Shallan. So I think Radiant is thinking about Shallan when Shallan takes over, when they're walking through the winding tunnels. And she considers Shallan's ability for memorization and like sense of direction to be incredible and almost supernatural, or her actual words. And so it's interesting. I'm wondering if that's a Lightweaver thing, or because Radiant and Vale, I don't think, consider themselves Lightweavers. And then I'm wondering if maybe it's tied to her, her photographic memory, her eidetic memory.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the common assumption that one of the Lightweaver resonance of, like, we know that each Radiant, like Windrunners, get more squires than the others, and so the common assumption sort of is that the Lightweavers get this sort of eidetic memory, or at least increased memory abilities, sort of. And it's cool to see that the characters actually start thinking about this, and like they try to figure out how their powers aren't just affecting, or how they can actively use their powers, but also sort of what passive powers they get, if you will. So, but I mean, it's also cool to see that Shallan there, like it's limited to Shallan, as you said. So Vale and Radiant don't really see themselves as such, or maybe they also just don't see themselves as having that memory ability, and so they don't get it. So that's cool.
So I guess we can move on to the next point of view, because that was kind of a short section.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go over that.
As I said, we didn't really learn much in this one, or in this Shallan point of view. But we don't only have Shallan, we also have Kaladin again. And we left him in the last chapter. We left him just before attacking or approaching Leshwi again. And so it starts with Leshwi is fighting Sixil at the moment, and Sixil is, of course, a less skilled fighter because he's more of a scribe, really. And so she still has her spear that drains the Stormlight, and she manages to, or almost manages to, kill Sixil there. But she actually spares Sixil, and it's sort of a parallel to how Kaladin earlier, or spared the other fused earlier. And so Kaladin actually also demands that Sixil bow to Leshwi to show deference and sort of acknowledge that they are now, I guess, even again. And and Kaladin at that point is also reminded of Alucard's death when he sees Sixil being beaten so thoroughly, which was interesting to note. But anyway, we go on to Leshwi actually fighting Kaladin again, and the Windrunners are at this point winning the larger battle at hand. So Leshwi chases Kaladin, or actually Kaladin chases Leshwi, and they sort of show off their skills respectively. But Kaladin has the advantage of knowing the terrain there because it's his hometown. So he actually gets to trick her a little. He's about to deal the killing blow to her when she actually sort of pulls off the same feint and also stabs him with her magic or her weird spear and starts to drain his Stormlight. They sort of deal blows back and forth, and they grin at each other widely, so they're really enjoying that fight. And they break off their attacks then after sort of realizing that they both want to continue fighting. They don't want to kill each other. And then they notice that Roshan's manor is on fire, actually, and we see the hulking fuse in front of it, who's attacking civilians at this point. And of course, Kaladin can't bear to see that. And it's actually the case that Leshwi also is disapproves of the other fused behavior and actually allows Kaladin to go after him. And even he says her eyes almost seem to tell him that, go stop him. So what did you think about all of this happening?
Oh man, I am not ready for this book. When Sixil was fighting and he almost died, I was like, oh my god, no. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle it when someone eventually dies. Seriously.
Yeah, I totally expect one of the, not at least, but one of the minor characters, like a Bridge 4 character, or I don't think one of the major characters is going to die yet, but I definitely expect some really tragic death in this book, and this isn't helping.
Yeah, it's like setting you up to expect it. It's very anxious. And then besides that, I was thinking about how Leshwi is fighting Kaladin and how she's fighting Sixil. Once she defeats him and he knows that he's going to die, he bows and he admits his defeat. She lets him live because Kaladin let her underling live. And so it's like they're bound to honor the same way that the Windrunners are. They're bound to their own set of rules, I guess. So he also, when he was about to charge after Sixil and Leshwi fighting, he didn't interfere because he knew that if he did, they would start rushing his Windrunners in groups instead of doing the one-on-one fights. So they have their own code, much like the Windrunners. This is just establishing that.
And I'd really love to learn how that sort of code came to be, whether it's something that whether it's just a cultural thing among the heavenly ones, where they decide, okay, we are going to be honorable and we're going to try this, or whether it's maybe, I wouldn't say magical in nature, but sort of that maybe originally the people who were more honorable among the singers, sort of, because we know that windrunners are honorable, like that's what attracts the honor sprint. So maybe the power set lends itself to that. And so Odium, when he initially chose to fuse, because like they had to be chosen at some point to become fused, maybe he also had some of the decision playing a role there.
Yeah. I like the idea that it's a cultural thing, because we saw Leshwi really disapproving of that big fused demon looking guy. And so Leshwi lets Kaladin go and save his people, because that's what he does. That's his thing. Yeah. He saves people. And so she kind of understands that. So this big fused guy is driving me crazy. I don't know anything about him. And we're going to see, so we know that Dalinar was, like later on, we know that Dalinar is opening his perpendicularity. He had to close it, and then he's planning on opening it again. And I think that in a later chapter soon, we're going to be getting some kind of really good fight scene when Kaladin recharges. He heals his wounds, and he's going after this big fused guy to save.
Yeah, really
people.
looking forward to Kaladin just dealing with him, Kaladin's style. And I mean, he'll come back probably because he's the fused, but yeah.
Yeah,
What I really like about this as well, like Leshwi's reaction to this teleporting fused, it sets up some internal conflict among the fused or this Odium's forces. And I mean, it basically also showed that there are factions among them. Like they're not just all on Odium's side and they're bad, but there is potential for internal strife. And let's see where that
it's like
goes.
the orders, like the orders of the Knights Radiant. They disapprove of each other's, oaths. I guess not their oaths, but how they, how their mindset is. They kind of disapprove, like Kaladin dealing with Shallan and Shallan's like lies and everything. So maybe it's something mirroring that.
Could be, yeah. I definitely it would enhance these parallels that we already have with like the heavenly ones being more honorable. So it would fit thematically, yeah.
And then lastly, with Leshwi testing him first on his ability to fly, basically. She's pulling him on this merry chase all around and doing all these loop-de-loops and things, and he's catching up with her. And so once she realizes, okay, he's pretty good at this, now we can fight. Like, it's kind of like she's testing his ability so that they can fight honorably matched, as, it seems like a duel.
Yeah, Kaladin's abilities at this point also, like he mentioned it before in the previous chapters, that he is really he's described as sculpting the wind around him and to aid him in his flight. And how he, at this point, he also says how he really sort of spams his lashings, if you will, to rapidly change direction and things like that. And the shaping the wind sort of, or the air, probably points at him also becoming much more adept with his adhesion as a surge. And so he doesn't really notice that he's using it, but it's because it sort of comes natural to him. But yeah, I think we're going to see some even greater feats from the Windrunners. That's also what Kaladin says, like with even more training, what could they do? And excited for that.
Any other thoughts about this?
So this spear that we have, that Leshwi has, for one, Kaladin sort of gets a cut across his cheek or neck, and it doesn't immediately start draining the Stormlight. So I guess that points at it has to penetrate far or long enough for it to actually drain Stormlight away. So it's not sort of this almighty weapon that you can just poke someone with and they're drained. There's limitations there. But also, you mentioned it last time that it might be sort of the key to a weapon against the fuse. And this chapter made me come fully on board with that theory, because at one point Kaladin actually says it feels like his soul is drained away.
Mhm.
And if that's not evocative, I don't know what is.
Right. Yeah, I kind of like that idea as well. I mean, when I first thought, I was like, I wonder if this could be used. Like, what if Kaladin takes the spear and uses it against him? So, be interesting. There was one little spot in there where it was a little confusing to me, because Kaladin was fighting her close up with Syl, and Syl turns into a blade and then cuts Leshwi, but it actually draws blood. And that is kind of unusual from how we know that they normally work, where they just pass through instead of actually cutting them. So I wonder what was going on with that.
Yeah, I didn't even really register to me on the first read, because, like, of course a blade draws blood. I didn't make the connection at this point, but yeah, it's weird that. And somebody on the Discord actually mentioned that we see him draw blood from the other fused earlier as well. So it might be something with the fused. Like, I don't know, maybe because they're only sort of searing an actually dead body or something like that. And so not really much to go on there yet, I think.
Right, yeah, it's just kind of a curious thing to think about.
Definitely. Something that's maybe a little more character related. I noticed, I mentioned in the summary that at the point where Kaladin and Leshwi are in really close quarters and sort of almost killing each other, they find joy in that and grin at each other. And we sort of discussed last week how people are shipping Leshwi and Kaladin now. And yeah, there's definitely something developing there between those two, but I'm not sure what to feel about it and whether I like it.
Yeah, I got a lot of comments on that from last video. I didn't mean to like ship them together, but I was talking a lot about how it seemed like they were flirting and like smiling at each other and dancing and stuff. I was just commenting that it looked flirtatious, that she's drawing him out by like, you know, smiling like on the dance floor if you want to like dance with someone. But I actually think that she's testing Kaladin. I think she's maybe trying to get his attraction for a different reason. Like maybe she's wanting to have him become a defector or something like that. She's testing his power. She's trying to see what he can do. She's trying to see him flying around. And I don't think that it's like she's trying to check him out to see if he's going to be a good boyfriend or anything. I just think that, I mean, that just doesn't seem like her, but it definitely seems like she's trying to get his attention in, you know, ways.
And actually, like at this point in the chapter, I'll spoil this a little here. We know that Moash is in attendance, and maybe that grin there isn't even like Kaladin misinterprets it and thinks it's sort of in response to the fight, but maybe it's because Leshwi knows Moash is here, and like she already saw the burning manor, and so she's looking forward to Kaladin sort of losing his temper almost, or dealing with that confrontation with Moash.
He's got a secret, kind of like, I know something you don't know. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
So just to clarify, I wasn't shipping them necessarily. I was just mentioning that she was kind of flirty with him.
And there's definitely some mutual respect for each other there, but I also don't think it's necessarily going to turn into anything resembling romance.
Right. Yeah, there was definitely a respect between them. Like when he dismisses his Syl blade and she kind of turns her own spear to the side as a draw, and then she says, "You know what? You go and you save those people, and you stop that big fused guy, whatever his name is."
Oh, I really want to know more about this fuse, and like we don't even have a name yet for either the type of fuse or himself. So really hope we're getting something there.
Yep. So that was Kaladin. And then we have a point of view from Navani. So back to Navani. And she's back up there on the deck of the fourth bridge. and she's watching the refugees. She's overseeing the evacuation. One of her Ardents, Falalar, is fretting about the evacuation. He's stressing about the ship's fabrials and that they haven't actually put it through practice yet. But Navani is too distracted. She's watching her stepson, Renarin, using his stormlight to distract some of the refugee children. He's using his abilities like a light and passing a ball back and forth. And she's thinking about how his abilities are kind of strange. They're not quite the same as the other Truth Watchers. So then Dalinar is about to reopen his perpendicularity. So Navani wants to be there. And then Rushu shows up, and she's distracted by the Windrunners. She's watching them and kind of making observations about them. And Navani, slightly agitated by her short attention span, she's like, just ignore it. We have to take some notes on this perpendicularity. And so they watch Dalinar open it. They said it's like opening the fabric of reality, basically. And then she notes that there's a new tone. She mentions that it's new. And then she also notes that something about these visions seems different from when she visits using the Oath Gates. So there's something a little different going on from just going into Shadesmar. And then Rushu, she asked Rushu what her observations were, and Rushu wasn't able to see anything, but she did feel a pulse, like a powerful thump, and then felt a sensation of falling into eternity. So they're discussing their findings, and they mention Queen Yasna's journals, and Navani's kind of like, I didn't even get to read all of them. And then Navani tells Rushu that all this research and everything is about the tower, how to reawaken it, how to create more efficient fabrials, and find its hidden secrets. And Rushu's just like, neat. And then all of a sudden, Rushu's like, hey, who's that Windrunner? Why is he just standing there looking or floating there looking over the battle, and he's not even doing anything? And Navani looks over, and guess who it is? It's Moash, the traitor, that murderer, clad in black and watching over the battle. And that is where it ends.
It's not, just as a note, it's not where the chapter ends, it's where her viewpoint ends. We go
her
back to
viewpoint. Yes, true.
That, but, yeah. So, first of all, I just want to note how much I love Rushu, and every chapter with her is just so delightful because it's adorable how she is always so distracted, but it's also fun to note that like nobody seems to learn that she's actually very astute in her observations, and actually like she notices stuff, and you better listen to her because it's usually important stuff. So yeah, it's always cool to have her around.
Yeah, I like how she's kind of sees the forest for the trees. She's kind of has, and I also like how Navani describes her attention span, like the light from a gemstone, like it radiates in all directions, which is actually really good for Navani because Navani has such laser focus, and Rushu brings her attention to other things. So I think that that's a nice, she should keep Rushu around.
Definitely. And actually noting that like that line with how she's more like a sphere with more diffuse light, I've noticed this in general with these chapters so far. Brandon's prose has actually it has improved considerably from the last, like it's steadily improving, but like it really was another step up here. And I really like how he sort of pulls off these more evocative phrasings. That's really cool to see. Yeah.
I definitely noticed a big jump between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, and then this is like Oathbringer on steroids. Like it's really beautiful writing. I really, really appreciate that.
So something else that I found adorable was Renarin using his sort of enlightened illumination, which is a fun phrase, to take care of the scared children. And that's just, it's cool to see Renarin interacting with people and sort of being social, because he's usually sort of he keeps to himself. It's cool to see him use illumination there because his brand necklace is special.
And then Navani says that his illumination is a little different, and so it's going to be interesting to see what the average Truth Watcher is able to do versus what his different abilities will be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like she says that the normal or the other Truth Watchers, let's not call them normal because they can do illusions more like the light, or at least like Shallan. And I think like they might have be a little less skilled there, because they also don't like transformation sort of also plays into illumination a little with how their skills work. And yeah, but to see that Renarin is able to at least do something with just normal light is really confusing to see, because like what is the difference between the two power sets?
Yeah. And with that being said, like with his illumination, it seems like he's dealing more with light itself rather than just creating an image or something. He's actually has this ball of light and he's able to like manipulate it and stuff. So it's just going to be interesting to see him compared to an average Truth Watcher.
I really hope we're going to get some viewpoint from him to maybe explore it a little more with Gliss as well. It would be cool. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, just tell us something about it, Brandon. I don't like. It's like how Navani says, "Oh, that she feels that like the light, the board of light he has is blue, and she feels it should be red because of the corruption of his friend." And like, just tell us something here and give us some answers.
Oh, he'll say something, some little throwaway sentence, and it's gonna like blow it wide open. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, when Dalinar opens up that fabric of reality thing, the perpendicularity, Navani is observing it, and she can see Shadesmar. She can see the ocean of beads and everything very clearly, and she can hear a clear tone. Rushu didn't see it and didn't hear the tone. Is that because Rushu was standing further away, maybe, or was it an actual reason, like why Navani is able to see it more clearly?
I wonder. Like she says that the tone is new for her. Like it's, I think it was the same tone she heard when Kaladin, Dalinar did the supercharging for Kaladin, but it's altogether something new she's experiencing. And Rushu is experiencing it completely differently. So I think that maybe like it has something to do with the spiritual realm, and yeah, it has to be spiritual, I guess. And
I just maybe that they have a different experience of it.
Like maybe it's hinting at something that Navani might experience in the future. Like it's a spiritual echo of, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe she's in Carbranth and one of the bells there sounds, and so she sort of hears that echo from in the future because she'll have always heard it, so as a spiritual thing. So, and Rushu has something else that she might have see in the spiritual realm.
Power that she feels. Yeah. So the Ardents and Navani, they're not really aware of the spiritual realm. Like they don't say the spiritual realm, but they are theorizing about its existence because this experience and I'm assuming other experiences in Shadesmar have some kind of feeling like there's something coming from beyond Shadesmar. So that's kind of interesting too.
But I found that interesting because I think in one of the interludes with like the Ardents who sort of do that sort of quantum entanglement of the Spren experiment, they actually mention the spiritual realm. So it's a little weird that Navani apparently isn't aware of it, but I guess it might just be that it's one of the philosophies of how the world works, and it's not like, oh, did you hear that?
Yeah. Maybe she's just not sure if that's what it is, and then she's just theorizing. Is it something else? Maybe, I don't know.
But it is cool to see that she thinks it's might be the key to sort of fixing or at least understanding how readthrough or the fabules there work. Which, if anybody finds it out, it's Navani. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, she's the most driven woman.
And something else about that line, like before that, she says that it's not like going to Shadesmar through the Oath Gates. And that's also, it's that one sentence, and it has so many implications because apparently they figured out how to make the Oath Gates work to not just teleport you, but to actually let you go into Shadesmar. And how did they do that?
She's been there a few times, maybe for taking some measurements calculations. And so, and I don't know what's different about it, though, because it doesn't really go into that.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I guess she also went there for her spread interviews and things like that. So, yeah. And
which I really hope we get about.
Yeah. I bet there are going to be epigraphs. Like, it would be that they are perfect for that, I feel. But maybe not. Maybe it'll be something else. But yeah, speaking of sort of Spren and Shadesmar, I just found that line about like Jasna being Jasna and not sharing all her journals. It's just, of course you wouldn't.
I know. I want to read her journals too.
Yeah. It just makes me think, like, what did she all experience while she was in Shadesmar? She probably wants to keep some of it secret because she learned a lot more than she lets on. Mm-hmm.
She didn't want her research being stolen.
Yeah, I think...
Anything about Moash showing up?
I mean, wow, he's there and...
He's around. He's wearing a black uniform. That's interesting. It's the same uniform as what the Windrunners are wearing, but it's all black. Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because we know that the listeners had this tradition of assassins wearing white. And we don't know whether it's like a normal singer thing or whether it's something that developed for the listeners alone. But maybe black also is sort of the signifier of, I don't know, he's just, their super soldiers get dressed black or something like that.
Maybe he just wants to look really cool.
That, of course, always can go rule of cool. But yeah, I sort of expected him to show up because he was always around Leshwi or like he sort of was Leshwi's lackey in Oathbringer, so he must have been around. And I wonder whether it's.
I like that idea that you had about Leshwi's grin and how she's grinning at Kaladin because she knows that Moash is around and Kaladin's just grinning because he's having fun. I like that idea too.
And it just makes me wonder whether it's the first run in they have with Moash again after the year or whether they had skirmishes before it. I guess we're going to learn in the next chapter, hopefully.
Or whenever. I know we're supposed to have a Venli point of view, right?
Yeah, it's like the chapter or the part beginning or the front page. Heading. Yeah. So, excited for what happened to her, but we'll see when we get it.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts?
I think that's about it. Like, we probably could talk a lot more about or theorize a lot more about how the spiritual stuff. Yeah,
we're trying to keep these a little shorter. We said in the last few that we're just trying to do little bite-sized portions, and they end up being a whole meal. So, but now with just one chapter, it'll be a lot shorter and a little more concise. Yeah. All right, so you can find all of these preview chapters on Tor.com. They come out 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And then we'll also let you know on the 17th shard.com right at 9 o'clock when they come out. You can come discuss them on our forums, on our Discord, or in the comments below. Bye.
Bye.